Are we firing? Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. It's April 24th, our weekly sales training. We have a tremendous audience today, both in person and via Zoom. I would like to start by doing, we're going to go over some of the stuff that we went over last week and do a little bit of role playing. So, Markle Bear,
Sure.
is a participant of last week's training. What is the first thing that we talked about, first kind of thing that would happen in a successful meeting when you get to the door?
First step, I guess, would be going through the agenda.
Exactly. And how would you do that? So you knock on the door, I answer, hey Mark, are you Mark?
Hey, my name is Mark with Ford Brothers. Are you Kevin?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice to meet you. Typically how this works is if you don't mind, just show me through the house. Let me know of any upgrades that you've done along the way. Let me know of anything that made you move to the house. And then afterwards we can take a seat, look at the numbers, and see if we have a solution that works for you.
Okay.
So no worries.
What are some of the things other things that you need to kind of tee up in the agenda?
Basically, I guess.
So you went through kind of what will happen,
Correct.
right? But you also want to talk about what else, Tara?
Well, at the end, we'll propose a solution, maybe two, and you'll decide what the next steps are.
Okay, so kind of that's sort of what will happen and just a little bit of timeline, but we definitely want to have these are the things that are going to happen in the meeting. It'll take X amount of time. We're going to walk through. At the end of the meeting, we're going to do this, and then we want to ask them for permission, right, for an answer at the end of that.
Yes or no.
agenda. Yeah. So how would that look, Tara? Like in terms of saying, hey, are you going to be okay with making the decision? How might you phrase that part of it, asking for an answer at the end of the meeting?
Well, asking for an answer, I've kind of laid out what to expect during this meeting. If it's a cash meeting, we don't buy every house we see. So if this works for you, great. If not, no problem. But at least we gave it our best shot.
Yeah, I think that's all of that's good, and then, we might even say something like, are you comfortable telling me no?
Mm-hmm.
That piece of scripting that we talked about last time, right? Because we want to set the stage right at the beginning to sort of as early as possible to get them comfortable with the idea that they're going to give us an answer at the end of the meeting, right? We don't want to. We've all seen meetings where we get to the end, and sometimes it's going to happen, but people say something like, I need to think about it, or I don't know, or thanks for coming by, I'm going to work with my wife and I are going to talk about it, whatever it is. So as much as you can kind of get out in front of that and, kind of get them mind prepped around the idea that they can make a choice at the end of this meeting. And an easy way to phrase that is, are you comfortable telling me, no, that it's not going to work, right? And that way they're sort of getting that in their mind that at the end of this meeting they're going to give us an answer, hopefully. Okay.
Yeah, because that was the thing that you missed in the intro is, just tell them how long it's going to take too. Like roughly how long they should expect it to take. I mean, I guess what should we use for the agenda, like 20 minutes or something?
I would say not any more than that.
Okay. Yeah, 15, 20 minutes, why don't you use that? Okay, so we're gonna walk through the house. Then we'll sit down, I'll show you what other properties have sold for, let you know what our offer will be. If it works for you, great, we'll talk about next steps. If not, no problem at all. If it doesn't work, are you comfortable in telling me no? I mean, something like that. And then adding in at some point, it'll take like 20 minutes. So it's like what you're gonna do, timeline, and that no's okay. I think are like the three.
I think that's
right.
right.
Like
Yeah.
the three things.
Yeah. And so like on the timeline, we'll walk through the house, you can tell them that we'll, you can even give them a little bit more information as to what's going to happen after that. You're going to, like to sit down, kind of tell you a little bit about our company, what we do, tell you what our offer would be, walk through the options, and then we can, figure out if it's a match or not. That's something like that. People, and that way it takes some of the uncertainty out of what's going to happen. I think most people are going to be comforted by the fact that you're going to do a walkthrough and then you're going to sit down and tell them things about you and the company and give them information that's going to, in theory, give them confidence in the company. So after we do the, that's at the very beginning, setting the agenda, then we're going to walk through the house, right? So Marco, what are some of the things that you would you try and hit on when you're walking through the house with somebody that you're meeting?
Well, I mean, I guess that's obviously that's the biggest time to build rapport and assess motivation. So
Yes.
you're just asking questions to kind of get to the root of everything. So like where are you moving? Why are you moving? Like, I guess, how soon did you want to move, or have you considered it? Just things along those lines to kind of like start conversation, but then also to assess how motivated they are to make the sale soon.
What other types of questions, though, would you be asking in the walkthrough?
Like, why are you moving? When are you moving? Where are you moving?
What are the types of questions that would you ask?
Have you been looking at houses in that area?
Uh-huh.
Do you have family in the area?
Uh-huh.
Just basically anything.
What else?
It's pretty much just like.
What about what led them to contact us?
Okay, yeah.
What kind of questions would you ask around that?
So what made you schedule the meeting? Like if we
What's another
have it all
question you can ask
for you
around
that works. I mean, are you ready to move tomorrow? Or do you need to wait a little bit, or there's things along those lines. I guess.
Also, why they even bothered to respond to the mail piece that we sent,
Right.
right? Like, what made you pick up the phone and call when you got that postcard? Why didn't you just call a realtor?
That was
Well, they're not all from that, like some of them are,
Some of them are cold calling.
yeah.
Yeah. What made you willing to, when the person called you, set up a time?
Yeah, it was on your mind.
Yeah. Like, just what was in your head when you agreed to set that up? What made you do that? Right. And then the question about why did you if it depends on what it was, of course. If it was a mail piece, why did you contact an investor instead of just going with a realtor? Like, why are you even entertaining an investor talking to you? There's other questions that you can ask. And then also, we talked about too, you can ask obviously just about questions about stuff they have in the house. Right? Like, you see a sports thing, obviously, you can also ask stuff about like just generic stuff that isn't specific. Would be like, how long have you lived in the house for? Right? Where'd you move from? Were you from the area? Did you move originally from somewhere else? What made you pick this house? As well, so you can just add that into your generic list, Mark, just so that you can ask more questions and hopefully find something that the person opens up about. Because a lot of these questions, it might be someone who's more closed off.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. So when you come in, right, the first thing you're gonna do is set the agenda, and then you're immediately gonna kind of go into the walk through the house. And you have kind of two overarching objectives in the walkthrough. And as Mark pointed out, one of them is to build rapport, and the other one is to gather information that's gonna be relevant for your recommendation, once you finish walking through the house and you sit down and you continue talking to them. So, walking through the house effectively, you've got to be sort of doing two things at once. Getting info from them and simultaneously building rapport. And you can take sort of a break from one, right, and move to the other. Every question that you ask doesn't have to be something that's going to be informative as to what their motivations are, as John explained. You can ask them, do you like my haircut? Whatever, it doesn't matter. My wife just told me that hates my new haircut. What do you think? It doesn't matter. But anything that you see, to ask them about the shirt that they're wearing, or if they have some capital stuff up on the wall, or whatever. They have a piece of furniture that's interesting. Anything. So like, I think Tara is pretty good at this. Tara and I have gone on quite a few meetings now. When we went to that appointment last week in the Southeast,
Darnell?
yes, when we did the walkthrough, or I got there first, and then you did a walkthrough separately with his wife. What did you talk with her about?
Oh, I talked to her about a lot. Actually,
You guys
I
were gone
asked her
for, like,
questions and let
forever.
her do all the talking.
Yeah.
Um,
What'd you ask her?
Well, I just asked her about, you know, the standard questions, like how long have you been in the house? You know, why did you choose this house? Oh, I didn't. My husband chose it. I made comments about, oh, that's nice. This is a really nice house. Why even sell it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so what is that? What are you doing there? Why are you asking that? You're trying to figure out what? with
Well,
that
doing a
question.
couple of things. Building rapport because I'm showing that I'm interested in her answers, but also to get information about what's going to make them decide.
Yeah, I think
what's
that's kind of the
hinging
primary
decision.
thing.
Right.
Right? You're trying to figure
Totally
out
what you said
more
earlier.
of, like, what's going through their head. Why are they selling it?
Mhm.
It's like, hey, it's a great house, you know?
Yeah,
And then
why even sell
why
it?
sell it? Yeah,
Right.
that's a good
Oh,
question.
we need something bigger. We've got all these kids, and you know, you find out what's important to them. And once you find out what's important to them, you can structure, hopefully, your offer around achieving that goal.
Right.
And what other kind of things did you talk to her about that were sort of more on the rapport building side?
Oh, well, I asked her if she had any concerns. You know, would there be anything standing in your way, you know, of making a decision? And on the rapport building, more around what is your next house going to look like? Who's helping? Is there anybody helping you with that? Did you know that there are buyer agents out there that are designed to work for you? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, and just finding out what they know and what they don't know,
Mhm.
and just let them do all the talking. You just have to ask maybe 5 or 6 questions.
Okay.
They talk the whole time.
Mhm.
Yes, I think Tara is, you know, is good at that sort of kind of walkthrough process. A lot of, from what I've seen, her questions are geared more towards the gathering information and less of the kind of like more random rapport building
Uh-huh.
stuff. But I think it's something that can be equally as effective. I think it's depends on the person's personality, and I think it's harder for me to sort of remain kind of engaged and lively if I'm just asking sort of like only kind of information gathering questions. But Tara does it well.
See, before I even go on the meeting, I know the numbers. I know how much they owe in taxes, if there's anything outstanding there. I know, so I don't have to ask a lot of number questions,
Mhm.
other than how much do you owe?
Mhm.
Right.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, the other thing that we talked about, right, was like, you know, remarking on things in the house, like we talked about, like whether it's something that you have in common with them, something that just you find interesting, or is like a random thing, an interesting piece of furniture, or a weird sculpture, or whatever. I mean, just asking about it is a good just like crutch to use. I think if you're having a harder time, because sometimes you know it's just don't mesh with someone very well, and this might be harder to build rapport. So like just random, like remarking random stuff. You can find something in the house that you are genuinely interested about, and you actually do kind of are curious about, or can make yourself be curious about it. Even like stamp collecting, or the person was a civil engineer, or whatever. I mean, just if you can find a place in your head that you can be curious about that stuff, and then start asking questions that you're just genuinely curious about, people can, whatever you are feeling, the person is going to feel. And if it's a genuine curiosity, they can sense that. So that's ideal if you can, but it's not always possible. But if you can do that. And then you also said,
Daniel Clark.
what's that?
The appointment we went on together, and it was Northeast, Daniel Clark. I mean, he was the most unmotivated
Yeah.
person. But you
And
kept
what happened with
trying.
that one?
I mean, he was just like, you know, you guys tell me. I mean, he was just, you know, very, you know. I
You
don't have
didn't want to
sell.
engage.
Huh?
He didn't want to engage.
Not really. More
Uh-huh.
tried
Yeah,
to
really.
find a few things.
Yeah.
You know.
And what did you try? Like, Or what did you, or were there
Well,
anything
he
you
used
think
to
you
be
could
like
do?
coaches, so I was like just talking to
Yeah, he
him
was
about
coaching
like
kids, so
yeah.
he would
Okay.
go into that, which was really good. And when Mark was looking through the house, I said, I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna talk to Daniel. And so I was just talking with him about some things, and but he was just very consistently, look, I don't have to go anywhere, y'all called me.
Right,
Well, then why meet with us, Daniel?
right.
And
That's a good question.
he's like, well, I just wanted to see what you had to say, and then he started talking about, I buy houses too from time to time. There's houses in this neighborhood. I said, really? Can you show them to me? And he did. He took us on a tour.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? Nice.
Yeah, just riding the van.
But there you go. Did he go?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's good. So why did you ask that question? Were you curious?
I was curious because
Right, so that's great, right?
Because if this doesn't go anywhere, maybe I can, find a couple others because
Right.
of the meeting.
Right. Yes, I mean, that's a great question, right? Because it's something that he obviously is interested in. He's fixing up houses. And you were genuinely curious, and you did genuinely, it sounds like, want to see it. So when someone is passionate about, someone else is interested in it, and it gives them an excuse to talk about it, it's a huge, if you can find that, you can't always find it.
Right.
But poking around a lot of different avenues, like shit in their house, in their background, what'd you do for work, how long have you lived here, where'd you move from, where are you moving to, your family in the area, to live somewhere else, just continually poking at all these different avenues to try to find hopefully something that person can engage with you on, that's something that they're passionate about, and ideally it's something that you also have some curiosity about. Yeah, that's kind of the ideal, but you can't always do it.
Are going to be more inclined to kind of chit chat or open up, right?
Mhm.
And so, what was another thing that we talked about last time in terms of rapport building? Doing like a kind of a personal anecdote, right? If there's something that you can talk about yourself that is like somewhat humorous and maybe in some way relates to something in the house or to them or their situation. I think both of you have heard me talk about my kid, my wife, my grandmother, my mom, my dad, like whatever it may be. Something like that I think is pretty effective rapport building technique because you're telling them something personal about you, which people tend to are going to view that as it's a little bit disarming, right? And if it's something, if you're telling them about a family member, then people kind of tend to trust a little bit more because hey, this person's telling me about something personal about their family, and then maybe they'll open up about their family, and that is of course like great because that's somewhat personal for them. So. Mark, what are some things, you're not married, you don't have a kid, so you can't go there, but what are some ways, other ways that you can kind of do that?
Well, typically, like John was saying, just poke around, just find something that they like to talk about. And I think there was a meeting I was on yesterday where the guy used to be a locksmith, and at one point, I worked in home building, and we had a new home that was completely built, and we got locked out of it. Homeowners were getting ready to move in, so we ended up having to bust a window. And I mean, at one point I bought a lock picking kit so we could try to solve that problem next time. And so I was telling him about how I tried to teach myself lock picking, and we ended up talking about that for
That's
30
good.
minutes or so.
Yeah, that's really good. That's something that they're passionate about that you also have some knowledge of and some probably curiosity about because you have some experience with it. So that's
You told him, don't be alarmed if I'm in your house.
Exactly. I was like, you need to teach me how to take deadbolts because those are different beasts.
I'm here for the meeting. I'm already in your house.
Yeah.
Another thing that's effective, and this is true in the insurance business as well, is tell a story about somebody else that you helped that
Right.
was
Yes.
a similar situation. That will have meaning to them because you don't know everything that's going on in their mind. They're not sharing everything. But if you can at least maybe tell a story or two about how you solved somebody else's problem and theirs is similar, it's very effective.
Yeah, and we have a couple stories too. So
Yep.
we'll share the Evernote with you. But so let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, we've got, that's later on with explaining
The different
as
options.
is, yeah.
Okay.
But that can be done. I think that is always something that you can use. You can use it as a technique to build rapport. I had somebody else who had that same issue with their house, or that I think is very effective because it does help demonstrate a little bit of expertise. This person's not the first time this person's ever done this, and somebody else dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with, it makes people feel a little bit better about it. But I agree, it's 100% a good
You've got
technique.
a ton of appointments, so you've got stories already.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just like having curiosity. I mean, just being genuinely curious about what the person's talking about, and just like prying deeper and deeper.
Mhm.
So I think you can find pretty much common ground with anybody as long as they're willing to talk a little bit. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and just, like, if there's experiences that have you ever had any experience in your past with, like, you know, like, parents or grandparents, like, moving and having a lot of shit and having to deal with that? Did you have anything like that you?
Yeah.
Like what kind of?
Well, my mom's getting ready to move, so she's got like a bunch of stuff that she has to pack up and everything, and she's not looking forward to it. So I mean, it's
Right.
like one thing that's.
And what's hard about that for her?
Well, she's pretty much like a hoarder, so
There you
she's
go.
gonna have to like
Right,
switch
that's
stuff
great.
to
So
throw away.
I would definitely share that in a lot of your meetings, especially if it's someone who has a lot of stuff or is struggling with how much stuff they have.
Right.
Like, that'd be something I would share. But that's to his point about like sharing personal stuff about yourself is a good way also. Sort of reciprocity. You share stuff about yourself, they'll share stuff about themselves. So that's another thing you can like add in during the walkthrough or during the explanation of the two different options, the cash and listing. We'll talk about.
That's a good one, Mark, because there's something like a little bit humorous about that. Everybody kind of knows, has a relative or knows somebody that like keeps too much stuff. Like everybody can relate to it. It's kind of funny, and especially if you're dealing with somebody who's like an adult child who's trying to help a parent move into like assisted living, and they're trying to sell this person's house, and they have like tons of stuff in it. Right? That's a perfect story. I'd be like, I'm going through something similar. Right now, my mom is a bit of a hoarder, and I say the same thing with like moved my grandmother into assisted living, right? And like the things I found in her basement, right? How does one even acquire jars of marbles, right? So like, and so.
Then the other thing too, I think on that one, right, was like if you find things about the house you can educate them on, if possible. Right, if you happen to know something, or even if you sort of know enough where you can sound like you know what you're talking about, you can see stuff in the house and educate them. I'll talk about like the age of I'll guess about ages of things. Like, oh, like when was this bathroom like the original from like the 60s or from the 50s or the 40s? Like, you know when this bathroom was actually, like when this bathroom was built, like what era this tile's from. Like guess about ages of furnaces and hot water heaters, especially if they're old. Right, especially if you sort of know, you'd have to kind of know to do it, but if you can be kind of accurate, then you're kind of establishing a little bit of expertise and stuff as well. And then even just stupid shit like, like electrical outlets or anything unusual about the house, if you know something about that and you can share it or ask them about it, that's another easy thing too.
Yeah, so that's like, kind of the demonstrating expertise piece that we talked a little bit about last time, but is something that you want to be doing throughout the meeting, right? Including the walkthrough. More of that's going to come, I think, when you're sitting down at the table, but that's a good way to start planting that seed in the walkthrough. If you can point to one or two things and be like, and say something that demonstrates that you may have some actual knowledge about houses, then it does you can kind of get the ball rolling for that. So what is when you're dealing with somebody who is like is really quiet and not opening up, and they're just yes, no, one word answers. There's a lot of people to be like, okay, you just walk through. They're like, oh, you just look at everything and tell me what you think, or they don't want to tell you what they, much about what their situation is. They just want you to walk through the house and give them a number, perhaps. They're not being super responsive. How do you try and break them down in the walkthrough? What are some other ways to do that? Sort of creative ways to get them to loosen up.
So a good one would probably help them see their picture perfect. Like just help them be like, hey, like 5 years down the road, like if you were to sell, like you can move anywhere you want, wake up, roll over, hit the alarm clock, where are you?
I think it's good. It's good. Any other kind of, if they're just being like super reluctant to talk though, any other kind of techniques to try and get them to at least kind of relax a little?
I might go for no. I mean, you look, you don't have to do this. It seems like I'm missing something. Just kind of get them to, you don't have to do this. I mean, something must have, and I'd go back. Why did you want to set the appointment?
I like that because you're calling them out.
Yeah,
You're calling them out on
because I
any
don't
other
want to waste
acting.
your time.
Right.
You know, and
I think that's a good
him
one.
and haw and him haw, and like, you know, I have to tell you, sometimes people will tell me that, and they're just being nice to me. Like, you won't hurt my feelings. If you want to tell me no, it's fine. But if there's something that's in your mind that you want to accomplish with this house, well, let's just explore that. I mean,
Yeah.
you can
That's good.
tell me no.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
That's
It's
good.
a good technique for sure.
Yeah, you're calling them out for, like, you're saying basically like sort of like what's wrong or sort of why are you acting this way, but just in a nice way.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah, this is not productive. Like, you know, why are you being?
Like we don't have to do this if you don't want. Like I
Yeah.
can just leave now if you want.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, in a nice way, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Tara's gonna bounce.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Next
I think it's
appointment,
good.
drop by.
But one other thing that I think is effective, can be effective with that, is just sort of ignoring. I think everybody's tendency, mine included, is to, you know, if you're not getting, you know, any kind of buying signals and people are not being very talkative, is to talk less. And so I just sort of ignore the context clues and just, you know, make jokes even if they don't laugh, and I kind of like, you know, continue to like, I'll like elevate my energy level up maybe a half step, and you know, kind of ignore the social cue of their not being receptive to try and just like break through. Sometimes it works because the person's like, wow, this guy, you know, he obviously doesn't, like, not affected by my demeanor, so like, oh, okay, you know, it's like, it can be effective. People kind of like will just sort of kind of give in almost, and they realize that you're not gonna like just, you know, kind of fold and stop asking
And
questions.
so what does that look like though? You're basically talking to yourself, kind of, essentially.
Yeah.
And you're abusing yourself,
Yeah,
sort of.
exactly.
Right. So you're, you know, like he's in his meeting a lot of times. You know, he's like narrating through the house. Okay, so we've got another room here. Is this the other bedroom then? I guess is the bedroom here. Okay, and it looks like you've got, you know, same kind of heat as the other rooms here in the ceiling, the kind of ceiling heat. And then, you know, he'll just find stupid shit to like point out. Like, you know, it's just something random. Like, oh, it's just like, what kind of wallpaper was on here? You just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, is that what you? Is
Yeah,
that, you know,
exactly. I'd be like, I can't believe this is the same wallpaper that my parents have in their bathroom. That's unbelievable. And sometimes they'll just be like, and like sometimes they'll be like, oh, you know, and then like if you just do it like 3 or 4 more times,
Right.
eventually they'll be like, oh, okay.
Right, and that could include, you know, even sometimes you're, I mean, something so stupid, you know, you're kind of just making it up sometimes if you have to, or if that's what it takes to amuse you. But, you know, you don't want them to bring your energy down. You want to set the energy and the tone of the interaction where you want it to be, which is hard to do, obviously, because if someone's sitting across from you
Exactly.
stone-faced or walking with you stone-faced,
Right.
but just force it, you know. I think that's another good technique.
You can just be like, or this is like a beautiful view out of the. Do you ever just come over here and stare out the? That's what I would do if I lived here. I love this. You know, people. They're like, man. You know, like,
Right.
sometimes. You know,
I just be in my bathrobe.
Yeah.
You know.
You like break them down. It's like you're basically saying, I don't care, like whatever, you know, because they're sort of purposefully being. You know, most people's personality is not to be kind of like curt and super quiet and say nothing. They're being like that for some reason, right? They either are suspicious of the whole appointment or whatever it is. So like if you just kind of like totally ignore it, people tend to slide into their actual personality after a while. Doesn't always work, but it can be effective. So that's probably the one other thing that I'm aware of that you can do with somebody like that. It's the only, kind of the only other way I know how to handle it.
Yeah, so you kind of calling them out nicely on it and say, did I do something wrong? I'm worried that maybe I did
Always
something
take it
that
on
was,
me.
right, that maybe I did something that's offended you maybe, and I apologize. I'm just kind of worried that I've done something wrong. If you can pull that off. Or you're just kind of forcing it, or you're just kind of forcing it, you're amusing yourself, and you're talking and asking them questions, making jokes.
Mhm.
And then maybe they'll come around, something will hit on them, maybe it won't, but it's better than not, trying that and falling into their frame. It's like a frame battle, like their frame is like, okay, maybe you're the 5th investor I met with, all right, show up, give me your offer. I'm not gonna talk to you, I've been through this long and dance 4 other times before, so just walk through, make me your offer, right? But if your frame is, no, like we're gonna have a conversation, and it's gonna be kind of fun, and I'm gonna talk to you, we're gonna talk to each other.
Yeah.
If you can do that convincingly enough, then they can sometimes fall into your frame.
I'll flat out ask them, do you want a serious offer? If they open the door and say, oh, you're the 5th investor I've seen, give me your offer. I was like, well, you want a serious one?
And then you slap them.
And then, let's talk about this. And just not accept that.
Right.
Just not
Yeah.
accept that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So then, so you finish doing the walkthrough, right? And
So agenda, walk the house.
agenda, right? Walk the house, and then when you're walking the house, I think, like we talked about, it's going to be sort of rapport building, gathering information, and maybe a little bit of expertise, demonstrating expertise, right? And then you're going to ask to sit down at the table or whatever in the living room with the person. This is, this is a really kind of critical juncture where you're going to, the walkthrough is done. Hopefully you've built some rapport, you've gotten some information, and now you're going to start to kind of go into whatever you want to call it, your presentation, etc. And in most meetings, there's going to be, unless you've gotten some signal along the way, you're going to be there, in theory, presenting a cash offer, and also potentially to talk about a listing, but that hasn't been, you haven't brought that, nobody's brought that up yet, right? You're there on the, under the premise that you're going to give them a cash offer. So what did we talk about last time, Markle, in terms of how to approach that conversation where you're kind of keeping both options alive, at least at the beginning, unless you know with absolute certainty that they're going to want one or the other.
Right.
How do you kind of do that?
So you basically just basically set it up for them to be like, typically anytime people are planning on selling, they have 2 options. It's either going to be a cash buy or to go through a realtor and try to get somebody to pay retail for it. And then go through pros and cons of either side.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you continue with that? Just kind of like how you would go through.
Okay, so on the cash side, you're about contingencies, closing costs, commissions, or anything like that on the back end. It's more flexible and certain on when the closing is going to be. Like I said, you don't have to worry about contingencies falling through, and then you have a settlement date set up, and then it gets pushed back, or the buyer falls off and they can't even perform. And you get to sell as is. Like if you don't want to move a single thing in this house, you can leave it. And the greatest thing about it is if you are comfortable with it, sign the papers right here, right now, and then you're completely done with selling your house. The cons would just be that you would net less than if you were to go through the hassle of a traditional sale, which would lead you to trying to get somebody to pay retail for it. So obviously the pro would be the cash offers con. You'd be netting more, but then you'd have to go through showings like coordinating when buyers can come by. You'd have to step out of the house. You'd have to get a lockbox set up on it. There's uncertainty of the timeline. You might have a settlement date that's set up and you think it's going to be certain, but like I said, somebody might drop off, might not be able to perform, and then it kind of puts you back at square one where you have to start the offer counter process all over again. And then you also have to worry about getting the house showing ready, because that's what's going to bring you the top dollar. You're going to go through and paint, clean, do all this stuff, stage it, here and there, so it can just be a hassle overall in the end.
So that, I think you're hitting on lots and lots of really important things there, and I assume that you're just sort of running through them. This is not how you would do it in a meeting, unfortunately, like flying through like a bit. Yeah, you're hitting on a lot of the key points, so that's very good. But I guess in a nutshell, what do you think what is the purpose of doing this part of the presentation, where you're kind of telling them two options and there's pros and cons to each? What are you trying to accomplish?
It's for you're establishing yourself as an expert, because
Uh-huh.
you're giving them all objective information that
Right.
they can't really say that you're wrong on. So,
And what else?
Good.
and it also, I guess, kind of gives you a way to pry into their motivation
Yes.
a little bit deeper to see which will fit their needs best.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess, and you probably ask questions too. I mean, like, what's your biggest concern with selling it with an agent? You can kind of go back to what you probably already asked about, why they contacted an investor instead of an agent. Like, what's your biggest concern? Is it getting the house into like a good show-ready kind of condition? Is it having to deal with people coming through your house and do showings? Is it not want to deal with like a kind of an uncertain closing date, you know, or the chance that it can fall through? Like, what's your biggest concern with that? And I also will sometimes ask, like, what's the most important aspect of our offer to you? Are you just trying to net as much as possible, no matter what? And you can wait if you need to. You can fix the house up a little bit if you need to. You just want the highest possible price, or are you willing to take a little bit less if it's an easy sale? You don't have to do anything, and you're just done with it. I don't know if you ever ask that stuff, but I'll usually ask that as well. You know, you do that on the walkthrough if appropriate, or when you're explaining the options. Just gets deeper and deeper into what factors that they are placing more importance on in their decision. For some people, it might be the embarrassment, right, of that other people have walked through their house and seeing the way they live. Other people, it might be just people coming through their house and having to deal with the inconvenience of it. Their stuff, they don't know what they're going to do with their stuff, and they just know they need like extra time, like they want to stay in the house after closing for a little while while they deal with what to do with their stuff. Everyone kind of seems to have a different thing that they attach to, so you're trying to poke and see what that might be.
Terry, you've seen me do that spiel
Mhm.
quite a few times now. What do you think is effective about it, and not effective about the way that I do that?
Well, what's effective is, you're trying to get the direction on which way to go. You're going to present them with something, whether it's a cash offer or a listing agreement. And so that's effective to get it nailed down, what you're going to propose. Trying to think of maybe not effective.
I'm at a loss as well, you know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's just perfect, so just
So
what you get.
let's think about one of our meetings. So, let's see.
Okay, I'll give you one.
Yep.
Fishing school, okay?
Yes.
She, Quincy,
Mhm.
she was not interested from the get-go. The only reason she had that meeting with us is because I went over her head, because I first contacted her a few months ago. I went over her head, talked to her boss. Her boss said, have the meeting. So she probably already didn't like me because of that. So it's good you were there to kind of
Yeah.
be the good cop, okay? And so with her, all she wanted was a number.
Mhm.
That's all she wanted. I think where we could have done a little better in that one is that you said you'd email it to her. I
Mhm.
think maybe, I can give you an offer, but it's you don't have enough time today. I need to come back and go over it with you
Mhm.
face to face, because she just wanted to get what she was told to get, and then you're not going to hear from her again.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to hear from her.
I agree. I think that's true. And so what did I try and do to avoid that unsuccessfully?
Well, you tried with your email, which was very good. You had the offer in there, but also the explanation around it.
No, before in my first email to her, before I sent her the offer, I tried to
Oh
deflect.
yes, you tried to say, look, I'm happy to, present it to the board,
Right.
be a resource for you. We
Right.
do this all the time,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. Is that what you were?
Yeah, and I want to let, when I send it over, maybe we can have a time so I can send it over and we
Yeah,
can
you're
walk through it
trying to
together
get
over
it.
the phone
Right.
or with the board. That way, if there's any questions, I tried to not send it
Yeah.
and get another
Yeah.
interaction. She was like,
She's like,
nah.
Right.
it was too easy. You're at email stage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then-
yeah, once you're trying to sell over email, that's usually a
Not
good
good.
sign that the sale, your first meeting, something was missed, is if you feel like you have to sell over email. If you're crafting, kind of like a lengthy email, or you're trying to convince them of things over email, that's a sign that you're pretty much dead in the water at that point, that you missed something, you missed an opportunity in that first meeting.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. What you're saying makes a lot of sense, Tara, because she had to leave. Like the meeting got cut short-ish because she went on to do whatever she was going to do. Right?
Yeah.
She left, and then it was like probably maybe the appropriate next step would have been to say, I got to come back.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, that may have been the best approach in that situation.
And how could we say that, right? So that's where like Lloyd, for example, would come in.
Mhm.
Right, so how would you use Lloyd? Lloyd's our sales manager.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lloyd's the salesman.
He's
is he?
she's
good?
transparent.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Lloyd, okay.
So Marco, how would you use Lloyd if you were in Kate Oleg's situation? Right, so so you need to set up a second appointment. How can you use Lloyd or whatever to say, hey, an excuse about why you have to come back again to make the offer?
Like I've seen the house and everything. If you don't mind, I'd like to get a few pictures, run back, talk to Lloyd, just go over everything, make sure that everything looks right in his books. Because I mean, Lloyd, he's the one who's over top of everything. So if I go outside of his scope, then he's gonna get mad at me. So
That's going to be bad.
yes,
Real
there's
bad.
gonna be hell to pay.
Right.
And then, what are you're trying to angle for what though?
A second meeting.
Yeah, are you gonna come back with Lloyd? Like they're gonna say, all right, talk to Lloyd and then email me the offer.
You can come back.
That's the right idea, though. But yeah, we got to figure out. Yeah.
So I think that's right. You can say, hey, I think we definitely have an interest in the property. If they're trying to kind of like give me an offer and leave type thing, like I can see that. Having walked through it, I know that we are interested in buying it. I'm going to talk to Lloyd, right? Who's going to talk to Philberto, and then I think what makes sense, and this is what we typically do, is I'll come back with Lloyd, maybe even Berta, and we'll do another quick walkthrough, and then we can give you our offer, because he's the one that really needs to see it as well. And then, I mean, that's, I think, kind of your only option at that point.
Right, you'd come back with Lloyd basically,
Is it-
and then Lloyd would be to someone else,
Right.
or you say Lloyd got a flat tire.
Yeah. or Lloyd died.
Lloyd was hit by a train.
Lloyd-
He's in the hospital.
He's dead, but he told me what the offer would be.
So yeah, so you would say, so the work is a little more extensive than what I was expecting, or I've got some questions about some aspects of the house, like the age of the roof and some other things I'm just not an expert in. I've taken pictures, but I know that Lloyd, before we make an offer, he's going to want to see the house. When can we come back with Lloyd to make you the offer? Unfortunately, I was hoping to do it at the end of this meeting. It's just,
Yeah.
we'll have to figure out exactly what to say, but due to aspects of the house, the age of the roof, whatever, I can't do it now. He's gonna have to see it. So it just take 10, 15 minutes. When can we come back to make you the offer? I mean, it's a little bit, it's a little bit tenuous, because they can be like, what the hell, you're supposed to make me the offer on the first one, so you have to be able to make, have a compelling enough reason why you can't in the first one.
Look, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't do it this way.
Right, because we can make you an offer and, Lloyd could, after he sees the house, way too high. Because I want to make you an offer that's accurate. The only way to do that is if
Yeah.
Lloyd comes by and sees the house.
You just say, are you concerned about, like you said, if you're concerned about, if there's an issue with the flooring or the
Right.
foundation or whatever, like, you just want to be sure, so you don't have to revise your offer later.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to run through. And I mean, part of the upfront agenda as well is, but what I think we probably should do is, so you're saying, okay, I'm gonna walk the house, I'm gonna tell you about us, I'm gonna make you the offer. When I make you the offer, are you in a position where you can tell me yes or no? Yes is great, no isn't quite as great, haha. but it's still totally fine. The thing I'm just trying to avoid is maybes and thinking overs, because we just end up spending a lot of time and effort kind of following up with people, and it can be kind of annoying, people that we're trying to follow up with. So are you in a position where when I make you the offer, you can just tell me a yes or a no? And so, and we'll talk more about this and see if we want to institute that. I think maybe we do, because then, like, the idea is you get up front the deal killers. If someone can't tell you a yes or no, then what that Saul guy was saying is he doesn't even make them the offer
Right.
at all. That's when they'll use
leverage
Lloyd.
you have is your offer.
Exactly, is the curiosity about what your offer is, just like you said.
And I think that
Hey,
the fishing school one is a good example also, because that's a really, really tough scenario. 'Cause that is a not-for-profit organization where the board is gonna have to make the final decision. So in no world are you ever gonna be like, while doing a walkthrough of the house with the entire board, who's gonna then
Right.
take a vote. Like,
Right.
Never gonna happen. So like the best you can do is try and get in front of the board. That's a really tough one, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
how to navigate
Well,
that. But
you've got your influencers. You've got, she's a key influencer, but Leo Gibbs, who's the executive director, I'm sure if he said, let's do it, if he wanted it to happen, it would be a formality with the board.
have you
So
talked
I
to
think
Leo?
Lloyd should talk to Leo.
Have you talked to Leo again?
No, I have not. I'll tell you why. This is the whole dynamics thing. My contact has been with Quincy now, all right? If I call Leo, yeah, I don't know.
No. Okay. We'll talk about this afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense. But that's like an unusual but particularly challenging one. But I
yeah,
think-
that's really unusual though.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're almost never gonna run into that.
But we could probably like.
But you'll have another
what you
decision
said.
maker,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you will uncover at the beginning. And that's what you would have
Right.
uncovered probably with her if you did that agenda, I guess, as well. You know, oh, I gotta talk to my husband, I have to talk to my nephew, I have to talk to my attorney. And then that's when you would use Lloyd, and then as an excuse to come back and do a second, you have to do a second live appointment. When that person is gonna be there, or after they've talked to them and found out what they want for the house, or whatever consultation, whatever information they need, so that they can actually be in a position to make a decision. And again, just keep taking pressure off, Mark, you know, when you're doing this. Keep saying, and no is totally okay. It's the second best answer,
Right.
right? Yes is the best. No is the second best. The absolute worst, like 5 rungs down, is maybe.
Yeah.
Or I have to think about it.
And if you tell me
That's
that,
the only
I'm
thing
just
I'm trying
gonna
to
have to
avoid.
count it as a no, because, you know,
Yeah.
that's another thing.
Well, and that's great too, right? You can say, that's another good point. You can say that, right? Because then the fear of loss is really powerful too. So that's also when you would talk about how many appointments we go on, which is true, right? It's like, after this, I'm meeting with 2 other homeowners. I've got other appointments tomorrow.
We don't buy every house we see.
We don't buy every house we see. I'd love to buy your house, and if you're not sure, or you have to think about it or whatever, that's totally okay. That wasn't to count that as a no, just because there's only so many houses that we can buy. It's to count as a no, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry to say.
It's bad.
Right, yeah, so I think that's another good, definitely. And you can use that, Mario, and that's true, right? And also why, if you leave an offer that's a cash offer, it has to have a short expiration, right? Because we can't have, Mr. Seller, 5 offers that all have like a week, because I'll always want a week. I'll have like a week contingency. You can't have that, because what if 4 come back and say yes? We can only buy probably 2 more, I'd say, in the next couple weeks. So that's why, you know, I'm not trying to pressure you. It's not about pressure at all. It's just a matter of honoring our commitments and honoring our word that we give to other sellers, and giving them the opportunity for us to buy their house.
I think that is kind of like your last resort there. Like, you know, some people are just going to be like, yeah, like, you need to just tell me what your offer is, or you can leave your offer or not, or you can tell me what your offer is over email or not. But like, that's how it's going to work. Like, some people are just going to force you into
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of your last option, is to leave it with short expiration.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so your idea would be, right, like you're saying, the idea would be you press as much as you can, that I can't give you the offer now, Lloyd, I have to come back with Lloyd, or I have to come back with Lloyd when your husband is going to be here, or after you've talked to your niece who's an attorney, you know, or whatever. That's your first option. If that doesn't work, yeah.
And if it's only one,
Like
if
24-hour ideally, or 48-hour should be the max.
if they are the decision maker, but they, don't want to sign up, they want to think about it or talk to Denise or whatever, expiration, would want to say, why don't we sign it up, and like with Darnell, 48 hours to cancel, right? And then sometimes that'll get them kind of locked in.
But with the attorney approval is a big one as well. So great. So we'll just do a contingency where you have 48 hours or 72 hours to get your attorney to review it. If the attorney does not approve, then you can cancel. So we can sign it up, no obligation. You're not committed to anything because you can back out within 72 hours, get your attorney to look at it. If they don't like it, you can just cancel it. Sometimes that will get them as well. And again, just keep coming back to, because they're going to feel pressure at this point, like you're pushing, right, which you are. So keep releasing the pressure valve. I would be like, I'm not trying to force anything if you're not comfortable, whatever. I totally understand. It's just that I have 2 other people I'm meeting with today. I've got 3 more tomorrow. It seems like we're kind of in line with the numbers, and like it seems like this is kind of a good fit for you and for us. So at least we put the money aside for you. When you sign this, we put the money aside. If we don't do this, tomorrow I buy the house this afternoon, and tomorrow morning you call me tomorrow afternoon, we don't have the money. Right, that's the benefit for them to sign. So it's like, we don't have a lot of things that we can, but it's like the fear of loss of it, like you guys are saying, and then the curiosity about what is your offer going to be, the tools we have to kind of like get back in the door, and then to ultimately force a decision sooner rather than later.
So I think for our next session, we're gonna like finish up kind of the meeting by going through the rest of the presentation at the table. You presented the options, and depending on which path you end up taking, listing or cash, kind of how each of those presentations would look, and that'll be our next Tuesday meeting. Prior to that, I'm gonna circulate an Evernote that has kind of all the things that we've talked about, different scenarios, different things that you can do at each point in the meeting. So we can have kind of an outline of an ideal meeting and the various paths that it might take, but at least you'll have different kind of like tools to use for each stage depending on the type of salary you've got. So, John, anything else?
No, I think that sounds good. And then after the presentation, at the table, you're going over the different options. Then the last part is you're talking the numbers.
Exactly.
So that's basically at the very end.
Yeah.
That's when you finally show them the comps.
Yeah.
On the iPad or on the laptop, whatever you have, you show them the comps, you show them pictures. Obviously these are low comps that support our offer, assuming it's cash. If it's going with listing route, then you show the retail comps and kind of you dangle the high price in that case. Right, so cash, you're basically showing how low things have sold for. Retail, you're showing how high it could sell for. A lot of times on retail, I feel like you have to kind of, like, the motivation is, oh wow, I didn't know I could get that much for it sometimes, to convince someone to sell now. So that's the last part.
Where do you get comps for just the cash sales? Is everything in MLS?
The tax record is for the cash.
Okay.
So we can go over that as well. So you go to the tax, because that includes both things that have sold with realtors and things that have sold off market, like to investors like ourselves, because those never hit the
Some
MLS.
things never, right, exactly.
So you can use the tax tab. You do the same geographic search you do in MLS in the tax tab.
Okay.
And then that's where the investor sales, will come from, the lowest sales. And then there's certain ones you want to print off where it just doesn't give a lot of information necessarily. Because you want to give them a lot to fight back against. Oh, this one was a short sale, this one was in such worse condition than my house. You don't want to give them a lot of information to push back on it. You just want to show the high level of the house a lot of times. So I'll talk about that at some point.
Yeah, remember when I told you the comps were all over the place? This is what we're talking about here.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Very good. Andrew, well done.
Andrew.
Excellent job, Andrew.